Ideas is a month-long arts show that takes place at the Galena Center for the Arts. It's an all-inclusive show to support women and those that support them to get to tell their stories. I'm Irene Traynborowski, and I'm one of the founding broads of Broad Ideas. This all started in about 2016. If you remember, it was an election year, and one of the main political parties had selected a woman as its candidate. Because of that, in our news cycle, gender was talked about a lot. Specifically, women were talked about a lot. Could we lead? How old were we? What did we look like? What were we wearing? And then more and more started to happen. In January of 2017, I attended a women's march in St. Paul, Minnesota. While I was up there, I was struck by all of these people, and they were passionate and kind and interested, and they were all championing women and their stories. All of a sudden, women were controlling their own narrative, something I hadn't seen, but had seen so much about women over the last year. And it struck me, that's the part that had bothered me. And I thought, how can I go back to my little corner of the world and keep that going? Provide a space where women get to tell their own stories, all their different stories, because they are so valuable and they are so interesting and they are so broad. So, at that point, I thought, who do I know? So I thought of Carol Sullivan, and I knew I wanted to include art and feminism and inclusive feminism, so of course her name rose right to the top. So I called her up, and I went to the Galena Center for the Arts, and we met. And within about 10 minutes of talking to her about this abstract idea I had where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I didn't know what it would be, I certainly didn't know when, and we didn't have a budget at all, Carol said,
yes, here was this remarkable, energetic young woman with creative ideas and energy to follow something through like this. I was entranced, and we had no idea where we were going, but we decided we were going to go there.
After getting guidance from Carol and continuing to think about this, then I contacted my friend Nancy Schultz. She immediately said yes. From there, I thought about my friend Kate Miller, who had expressed interest online on a social media post months before. Kate Miller was back in. She said yes when I contacted her. From there, I got a hold of my friend Jen Nuttrutt. She also said yes. Nobody would say no. I went to my friend Rose Noble. I knew we needed her help. She also said yes. And so we all sat down in June to have this meeting. And as the meeting was about to start, to plan this thing that we didn't know what we were planning, in walked Kathy Ellsbury. I didn't know who she was, but she had heard about this thing we were planning. We didn't have a name for it. It was just some art show. And she said, I need to be involved in this. Well, that was just the kind of attitude we liked. And so she joined our crew, planning Broad Ideas also. And the planning was underway. We were a group of people that didn't really know each other, hadn't worked together before, and weren't even sure what we were creating. But I can say without any exaggeration, we bonded in a way that comes along once in a lifetime. It was a dark and snowy Friday evening in early March 2018 when our first show kicked off. People poured into the opening. You could barely walk. It was clear others were also hungry for women's stories, done in a way where they controlled the narrative. Purposefully scheduled during Women's History Month, over 50 visual artists had submitted work, ranging in age as young as 4, up to individuals in their late 90s. Throughout the month, our events included a poet laureate, Women's History Night, a songwriter's showcase, yoga nidra, and a spoken word closing. during that first year of planning, we hit some bumps. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. The name of our show concerned some. We led with love, met with folks, discussed the power of taking a word back, and forged on. The Galena Center for the Arts never wavered in supporting this show. We didn't think that what we were doing was controversial, but I have learned that whenever women organize, and specifically in a way that celebrates women, promotes them, and talks about their power, some people become a little concerned. The donors lined up. Businesses, individuals, both local political parties, they all gave us money for our show. So we got a billboard, and then we danced under it. We went on TV, created spots for radio, put information in the local papers, hung posters, created swag, as well as a website and a social media presence. Volunteers also lined up. People asked us what we needed, how they could give their time, their food, their expertise. All of a sudden, the Me Too movement exploded in mainstream culture, and so much of what we were doing with broad ideas supported that. Long story short, it took off. That first year almost killed us. Looking back, there are a few things that I'm really proud of. For so many people, it was the first time they had ever been a part of an art show. I saw firsthand how art can save people's lives. I saw how it gives them confidence and purpose and a sense of community. I saw all of that come together at the Galena Center for the Arts. All of our events were free. We offered free childcare at every single event. As a feminist art show, it was incredibly important to us to remove the systemic barriers that often limit women from participating. One of those is affording and accessing safe and reliable childcare. And the stories that the artists included to be placed next to their work. Stories of survival, of cancer, assault, abuse, and more. Stories of triumph and pain and courage. And the stories that people whispered to me on the side. The show felt like a sacred space as you walked through it. It demanded respect and refused to apologize. It was also funny and filled with compassion. After March 2018, we all took a break. We did not know if we would do it again, but we also could not imagine letting it go. Later that summer, we met and started getting back to work. I wondered if anyone would want to do it again. Would the community still be interested? And when the interest forms started coming in, well, there were more this time. Our 2019 show saw even more involvement from artists and community members. Our events shifted slightly, and this time included a table reading theatrical event. Plus, we offered a scholarship. Our 2020 show saw the same thing. Our events shifted slightly. We offered 2 scholarships, a full theatrical performance, and even more artists submitted work. Each time, regional artists from Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin answered the call, as well as folks from states away. Work was being mailed in from Colorado, Minnesota, Indiana, Virginia, Idaho, Michigan, and people were coming from those states to come to some of our events. We now had easily over 150 people contributing their talent. Donations and volunteers still poured in. We were lucky to have 2 new broads. Cindy Tegmeyer and Connie Warnsing joined the planning committee, bringing needed skills and fresh ideas. So we marched on. We still got a billboard each year. We did all of our other press. We offered free childcare, had photo shoots, created a selfie station, and more. We also continued our partnerships with Riverview Center to assist with childcare, sharing their needed services, and for one of their professionals to be on hand for counseling if anyone were triggered by the show. The League of Women Voters of Joe Davis County sat at events to register people to vote. What I can tell you this is that Broad Ideas is a community. It's love and laughter and compassion and honesty and support. It's so many people coming together in ways I couldn't even dream. And if you would like more information, please go to www.galenacenterforthearts.org. You'll find all sorts of information there. I encourage you to support this. I want to thank all the artists, authors, musicians, songwriters, donors, volunteers, patrons, the Galena Center for the Arts, and of course, the Broads. Everybody showed up. This is a remarkable undertaking. And now 3 years in, I see no end in sight. The future is very uncertain. I don't know what it holds for Broad Ideas, but I can tell you that Broad Ideas will be in the future.